we're going to talk to you about a journey that Hertfordshire and Ringway have been on with our ARAP and WSP colleagues as well, around collaboration. Fair to say that at the start of the contract, there was some really, really difficult and challenging times. My predecessor had to restructure the business, try and make sure that it had someone dedicated looking after highways on its own to try and help sort all this thing out. And I think what we'll be talking about is a little bit about the outcomes that we've managed to achieve from the closer working, the importance of people in this process, and some of the challenges that we still have around those who are still a little bit master slave about the world. Some of our county councillors, some of the members of the public, even some of the staff are on both sides of the equation. So I'm going to hand over to Kevin to do the first bit, and then when you see the ants, you get me, okay?
Thanks, Mark. I've had an introduction, so that's fine. I think before we start, I think one of the things that if you're going to collaborate, then you need to be honest. You need to be honest with yourselves, and I think we need to be honest with our clients or supplier or service providers. And I think that makes a big difference. We weren't in a great position in this, going back now to 2014. We did have issues going on. It's not a secret. They were in the press and all over the place. So we weren't doing very well. The press statements were there for all to see. In terms of our performance, we were well down, as you can imagine. Mark has mentioned a few minutes ago that there was some restructuring, there were some changes in personnel, and I think those started the process of looking at what we did slightly differently and looking forward to how we go and bring together some of the things that we've been talking about in terms of working together. One of the things around people were very much entrenched positions when we had difficulties, going back to where they were comfortable, and that just brought about much more problems to get over, to agree, to clear out, and all these issues that are on the screen that you can read quite happily are there and were there very, very much so in 2014. But it's changed. So I put on there now the performance where we were and where we are now. So there has been a massive step change in between, and I'm kind of like illustrating it through numbers because it makes a point. The question was, is it real or is it just a buzzword? Well, I think it's real. And you can see through some of the presentation later on that it's real because things have changed hugely. Mark mentioned that there's three parts to our organisation. There's our client, Hertfordshire, there's ourselves, main contractor. We do some design works as well. But there's also WSP and ARAP, and that we form a tripartite agreement. So the little stool up there is any one of those legs fail, then we fall off the stool kind of thing. So we kind of like put that over. So if there's only two of you in the partnership, you'll have to think your own little motif. But the tripartite stool certainly works for us. In terms of the definitions, we were working on the top one. There was some cooperation to try and get the goals for each of the separate organisations. But really, collaboration's slightly different. We're looking for those common goals now that we can all work towards. And just a bit of background, our contract is a defined cost contract with a pay and gain element. So for us, the key area are reducing costs. So where are we now? We're looking to reduce costs. It helps Mark's team, it helps me. It's a common goal, and we'll go on to goals a bit later on. Currently, we've got the highest performance going. Things are working well, and it's given us an opportunity to think about the future, think about innovation, and we're looking to bring in that innovation into the way we work now. And it's that headroom is so important if you're going to develop and move forward, I think. One of the things that we worked towards in Ringway was the ISO 44001, which we got a couple of years ago. And I think those principles are now starting to be embedded in our teams. It's not easy. Not everybody buys into it. I'm not trying to kid anybody. It's very hard, but we have to work and deliver that. And one of the key things is relationships. Absolutely key are the people in our contract and delivering the works on the ground and embedding the ethos and the way we work into those. The human factor, you just cannot set that aside. It's really important. So the next slide really is just putting that relationship into some kind of boxes. Yes, we talked about trust right at the beginning. It's really important that we have that mutual cooperation to get towards a point of collaboration is key, and having that common goal is one of the core elements of it. I put approachable on there, but really, we're in an open office. I'd like to think that the client or the design guys can come up and talk to me or any of my team in that office, and we're not in separate boxes, knock on the door before you come in type of thing. We want to get to a position where we're approachable and we can build on those things. And if you're not looking for a win-win, then it's not collaboration. So moving our culture on, we put a document together, as did WSP, about 2024, because at the time we were looking to have an extension with our client, and we're working on that. So again, another emphasis to move on. It's important to me as a service provider that we continue to gain that works. And again, I'm being honest. I think Mark accepts that, but we also want to make some money as well. I think we need to be honest about that, and I think the client needs to accept that as well. Hopefully Mark will say that later on. But it goes beyond the contractual side. The contract is the element that we're working to, but it goes beyond that. It's about those relationships, I think, in that. So collaborative training is what we're now embedding in our teams. We're all going through the same training plans, trying to mix it together so that we're working together and have the same kind of common language that you need when you're delivering this. So one of the common phrases that we now hear bandied around the office is chilly, and that represents having meetings that are very hot, but we can still walk out and continue to work on it. And we get all the rubbish out on the table. I'd use a different word, but we get all the rubbish out on the table and we deliver it and understand what the problems are. But we need to provide that environment for our teams to operate in, and this is how we're doing it. And those relationships need to mature, and I'm not even thinking that we've finished, far from it. We've only literally just started. So that is where we are at the minute. In terms of the tools that we're trying to use and bring this about, we have a combined management team where my team leaders sit with the client and the WSP to bring together the understanding of what the service wants and work together so that we as a service provider are providing information about what's difficult, what isn't, etc., etc. So it's important that we do that. We're bringing in the very much shared open data. So we are sharing information and we understand the value of data. I think Nick touched on that earlier on about how we deal with it, how we see it, and the data's not being used by the client to point the finger and say you're rubbish. We're trying to get down to the root causes and understand what is making that performance indicator not work and fix it rather than just deal with the symptoms all the time, which is maybe what we were doing in the past. And we're now starting to share commercial gains from innovations that we're developing together. So it's really, really moving on. The key thing in this slide is that I now sit on Hertfordshire's SMT, senior management team. So some of the key decisions that are now being made by Hertfordshire are around the way we operate, the difficulties we have with revenue, everything that you guys have, but we're involved in that to try and advise and develop it and take it forward. And I know the next slide is the ant slide because you can see it on the screen. So I'm going to hand over to Mark. Right.
Thank you. Yes, so thank you. So just kind of building on that, when I've been back with the organisation since last September, one of the things that I noticed was that having been a resident of Hertfordshire for a long time, that you could see in the local press the tension in the arrangement. But when I got there, it didn't feel like it was quite as bad as all that. But what was still happening was that we had a separate meeting with Kevin to talk about Ringway things, and a separate meeting of what was called the whole client service. So when I came in, we got rid of that. I think there's something about messages to all the staff. So We used to have, or we still have, a Tuesday morning catch-up when I can get in on a Tuesday morning. With Tuesday morning catch-up where all the senior management in that line get together, catch up on what's going on, where the challenges are, share all the angst, a little bit cathartic, but also quite useful in terms of picking up those things and giving a message to the rest of the teams that we are all working together. So there are the ants. Important for us that we're looking at shared and common goals. And certainly we've been looking about improvements in service delivery. We are crawled over by audit, as most local authorities are in terms of member interest in the service. It's the everybody, everyday service. It's a bit they want to influence as much as they can. So we need to be able to evidence that improvement in service delivery. We're looking to reduce costs of the service, as Kevin said. And Kevin's looking for a satisfied client. And I kind of, having not managed to get to these slides as quick as I should have done, said to Kevin this morning, actually, we should also put on here, I want them to be a successful provider. You know, there's absolutely no value to me in me squeezing Kevin to the point where he can't invest in his training. You know, he's constantly trying to look for ways to recover losses, because I know he's going in and seeing his boss, and his boss is saying, where is he against his bottom line? So I need to understand that, and I need to have some empathy for that. One of the great things for the county council about having Kevin as the director is that he has history, as you know, from local government. So he has some empathy for our side of the business as well. And I think that's really, really important. Talked about the gain share already, this idea that we're sharing that. The members quite like the fact, when they understand it, that we're actually capping the amount of risk that we're exposing them to. But there's also a driver for us to, between us, to get to a better place. As Kevin said, the chilly meetings now, the making sure that people understand how hot a meeting is going to be when they get into it. Go there prepared. It's an open thing. It's not something we're trying to hide. We know we're about to have a difficult discussion, so let's just be open about it. Go, yeah, we know. And then when we come out, we're out of the meeting. I think there's something about getting those little things right. So when you get those little things right, you're able to do the bigger things. So if together we can show that we're doing the little things right, that gives us the ability and the permission from the members and other senior management to invest in innovation, to do some of those things that will improve the service. Otherwise, we get tied down in the kind of master-slave arrangements, so getting ourselves out of that. And then those Tuesday meetings are part of that really proactive management of risk, understanding where the pressures are. And then there are meetings below that are doing that. And those are helping us also identify through the innovation, etc., where there's potential opportunities for future savings. So Hertfordshire is looking at a 40 million revenue pressure in 4 years' time. So we're better off than quite a lot of our colleagues, but we still have a big pressure to look at. And Ringway are part of our solution. You know, Ringway and WSP are part of the solution of how we will cover off that revenue cost. And they understand that. They know that if we're going to save money, it's not all going to get piled back into the arrangement. Some of it's going to go into adult social care. Some of it's going to go into education. And they understand that those are some of our drivers, and that's really helpful. So we've talked about improved service delivery. We are a really, really data-led organisation. I'd encourage people, if they get the opportunity, to get in touch with Kevin and come and have a look at the data and stuff that's going through the system and how we analyse what we're doing. It is fantastic. And then we use our benefits within year, but then maybe have to offer things up at the end of the year. So some examples of our benefits. We've not got the kind of environment that many of us are used to from the good old days, quote unquote, of kind of spending all your time working out how you're going to twist the arrangement to make sure that you benefit the most you can. I always think the only people who ever win out of those things are lawyers, and you know, to be honest, that's no benefit to any of us. So we're not in that. We're looking at what our outcomes are, our shared outcomes are, and how we deliver those. We've talked about difficult discussions and how we've changed the language to enable people to enter into those in a more proactive way. And we're also working really hard on making sure that we've got people who enjoy working together, that they've got that service resilience because they'll cover for each other and all those kinds of things. That doesn't mean to say we still don't have the odd day when either Kevin or I or one of the team have to go and talk to somebody because they've used inappropriate language, you know, they've perhaps slipped into a, well, that's because Ringway have done type thing, or, you know, no, that's what the contract says, so therefore you're only getting this on day works kind of discussion. So we know every once in a while we have to take someone into a corner and say, that's not actually the way you need to behave. but that's about us as a management team leading that change. I've always found it a bit odd that you can write into a contract, thou shalt collaborate. I don't think you can do that. I think this is one of those things that's all about behaviour. It might be words in a contract, but actually this is about behaviours and attitudes. So a really important slide for us. This is the one that shows how much the world has improved for us in terms of reducing our costs. So over the time, our Cat 1 costs have gone down from just over 9 million a year to just over 7 million a year. And that's through collaborative working. Now, some of that is fortuitous nice weather in times and those kind of things. Some of that is changes in prioritisation, because we've talked about how we might change the way we prioritise stuff. Those things that have been prioritised out of Cat 1 still get done. And what we haven't seen is a rise in public dissatisfaction or an increase in reports. So that shows that what we're doing is actually working. And again, this is the same area. In terms of general contract performance, you can see we are really up there now, and we take that in front of audit, and the members are really happy with that performance. The opposition are never happy with anything, but that's a separate issue. But the members in general are happy with the level of service they're getting. I'm not getting loads of complaints about potholes not being filled. I occasionally get something about a hedge not being trimmed. We've got to that level. We've got away from the really structural stuff. So just as Kevin's already said, I think we've invested in the collaborative leadership program, ISO 44001, which I think actually for me as a client side, probably a little bit more about something for the provider than it is the client. To be honest, I'm interested in the behaviours that are driven out of ISO 44001. It's not particularly of a worry to the county council whether we have ISO 44001 or not, but I think it's good for Ringway, and therefore it's good for us. We've got the combined offices, as we've said. You wouldn't know who was working for which team quite a lot. And we also got this idea that we've put something into a black box when we've got a problem. We don't get ourselves stuck with just looking for plasters to solve solutions. We get into the nitty gritty of it, and we really sort out what that issue is and what the right solution is in terms of problem solving. As I said, a very, very data-driven service. I would encourage you to go and see that. So where we want to be, we're quite keen. When I worked for Hertfordshire many years ago, we were one of the top highway authorities in the country. We've been a little bit quiet over the last few years. Those of you who've worked for me in other authorities will know my strapline. So I'm looking for us to be the John Lewis of highway authorities. That's where we're looking to get to. Not the never knowingly oldest old bit, but the partnership relationship, the good customer service, and all those sorts of things. Really provide proactive and efficient service, the best of all. So reaching back into Ringway and Eurovia, reaching back into WSP and Arup, and making sure that we get value from the other things that they can add to us, as opposed to just the kind of the normal day-to-day stuff that we get onto. And then that we've managed out all those risks that we've got in the system as best as we can. And working together is how we're doing all that. Now, part of this is also about being recognised for what we're doing. So we're looking at awards around areas of collaborative working, effective delivery, those sorts of things. We've already won an Adept Award around some work that we've been doing, not only collaboratively with Ringway, but with Essex County Council, Ringway Jacobs and Roadworks.org Elgin. So we've won an award for some work we've done there around providing real-time information on road closures for the public that gets into their sat-navs at the instant the road is closed, and then we can remove it as soon as the road is back open again. So there's the award, and rather awful picture of me. So there's that one, but we've also got work from awards for our young professionals who've been recognised for their good work by CIHT in the East of England. We've won the Collaboration Award at CIHT, and also the Skills and Training Award for winter maintenance driving with our Ringway colleagues across the piece. So some really good work going on, which is coming about by the fact that we're open, we trust each other, there's a really good working relationship, notwithstanding the opposition members, but we deal with that. Something about how you manage and lead. And I think the way you get collaboration is through leadership behaviour.